Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called What's for Dinner and is from the company A La Carte Games. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. The project is ongoing right now. You can do that by following the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. You can go there, find out more information than I could possibly tell you here, and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, What's for Dinner is a competitive game. Thematically speaking, you and the other players are friends who are just going out for dinner and you want to find the best, most delicious meal possible. But of course, that's never easy when you're out with a group of friends deciding what you want to get, but also every person in the group having their own preferences, food allergies, just things that they don't want to eat or can't eat or really want to eat. Everyone has their own things to worry about. So you kind of branch off, go and try to find your own meal. In game terms, what you're trying to do is get meal points by collecting different meal cards that are each belonging to different food groups and cost a certain amount of money. So you need to worry about that too. So you're literally going out to buy food and worrying about what your personal preferences are. It is, of course, a tiny smidge more complicated than that. So let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played with a prototype copy of the game. So do remember, bear in mind that what you see here may change in the final version, and that is exactly why you should go to the Kickstarter page to find out more information. But then, in any event, after this, we will come back and discuss it further. What's for Dinner is a competitive game for 2 to 6 players. Each player is one member of a group of friends who are out together trying to have the best and most fulfilling meal. However, everyone has their own likes and dislikes that they have to follow, and you need to make sure that your meals not only meet these requirements, but also that you can even afford to buy them at all. As you gain meals, you gain points, and whoever has the most meal points at the end of the game is the winner. Start the setup by laying out the pyramid of meal cards. Shuffle the deck, lay out one row of 3 meal cards face up, a row of 2 meal cards on top of that face up, and finally the rest of the deck itself face down on top of that row. You can set the bottom of the game box nearby to use as a discard pile / dumpster. Meal cards have several features. On the left side of the card are the meal points you get for acquiring it. The right side has the costs of the meal, and some meals have special effects and abilities. These are called specific meal cards. And finally, along the bottom of the meal cards, there are icons indicating which food groups that meal belongs to. Next, deal out trait cards to each player. Give each player 3 cards. Then, they each choose 2 of the traits, discard the third face down, and make one of the chosen traits face down in front of them and the other one face up in front of them. Traits are limitations you place on yourself as to what meals you can and cannot have. At the end of the game, if you fulfill the requirements by having the right meals with the right food groups, you'll get the depicted points. Also, the trait card you choose to keep visible will be worth double points if you fulfill it. Next, determine the start player randomly and give them the cafeteria tray token, indicating that they are the start player. Then, shuffle the wallet cards and deal 3 cards out to each player except for the last player, who gets an extra card. Wallet cards are split up into 2 main types of card. The first is money, in different denominations. You can spend as many of these as you need to at once by adding up their values to buy a meal card. However, any amount that you go over counts as a tip with no change given back. The rest of the wallet cards are freebie actions. These are special abilities you can use either on your turn or another player's turn as dictated by the card. These can do things like let you reroll a die or draw extra cards or even add a bacon wrap to a meal card in the pyramid, which is an actual overlay that eliminates all the other food groups on the card except for bacon and eliminates the ability to get the card with money. You'll need to make a bacon roll to get it. Speaking of the die roll, leave it within reach of all players. The 6-sided die has a side for each of the food groups: fruit, veggies, meat, dairy, grain, and bacon, which is considered wild and can be substituted for any other food group, and does not count against you when you have to limit your food group intake for trait cards. After setup, go into turn order starting with the first player. On your turn, you first have the option right at the start of killing one of the meal cards in the middle of the pyramid by removing it and placing it at the bottom of the deck. Next, you roll the food die to see what comes up. Then you have 3 options and you can only do 1 per turn. First, you can choose to take a card from the food pyramid that has a food group that matches what you just rolled on the die. If there are none, then you can't do this. The second option is to simply purchase a card with wallet card money from your hand. The third option, if you can't do either of those, is to permanently discard one of the cards in the food pyramid, which also lets you draw a wallet card. Remember that during all of this, you have the option, if you have them and if they apply, of using freebie wallet cards when the time is right. After resolving whichever option you choose, your turn will come to an end. Before it moves to the next player, you must replace any cards in the pyramid that are now missing. If at any point as these turns keep going, the last meal card is drawn from the pile, the game end is triggered, but it doesn't happen right away. The game continues play until you finish out the current round, which means that everyone will have an equal amount of turns. Then, players will add up their points. Check to see if you fulfilled your 2 traits, and remember the visible traits doubling effect, but also remember that even if you didn't fulfill your traits, the meals that you gained are still worth their points. Add the meal points together with your possible trait score points, and that will be your total point value, and whoever has the most points at that point is the winner of the game. That is what's for dinner. There's a few things that I think potentially are going to hook people for what's for dinner. One is the theme. It's a very lighthearted theme, not too complex, but it is something that everyone can potentially relate to. Being picky and trying to find the right type of food for yourself, having a very particular palate for these types of things, and having to go out with your friends and worry about who's getting what food, where are you getting it, do we have to split up, are we going to all go to the same place, and how are we going to split the check? Well, that might come with an expansion, all the trials and tribulations of splitting the check. But how it plays out here is that you have to try and find the right meal by looking at the food group icons, and then so the theme ties to the mechanics. And then when you're spending money, there's no change, so you're tipping. Sometimes you might have to over tip, but if you just desperately need that meal, and we've all been there. I'll pay whatever. I'm starving. I really want this particular type of food, this comfort food. I don't care what the cost is, that type of thing. Not to say that that's a wise decision in real life, but there you go. In game terms, it can be incredibly wise, if risky, to give up a lot of money to get a particular dish because you really need that particular card and those food groups, for not just for the points that they themselves give, but potentially for your trait cards. And that's the other very interesting wrinkle in the game, is those trait cards. First, the fact that right off the bat, right at the start of the game, in the setup, you have to make a very important decision. Which card are you going to leave face down? Which card are you going to leave face up? Knowing that everyone can see that card and potentially try to foil you. So, for instance, the one I used in the preview example was Picky, which is how I am in real life, which is have the least amount of meal cards, which is not how I am in real life. But everyone can see that. That's the one I chose to leave face up in the example, so that people can try to be like, well, okay, that's a hard one to try to foil, because obviously you want to get more points if you don't have the picky card. But another player might say, well, maybe for my trait cards, I'm okay. I've got a lot of high point value here. I can live with just getting a couple of dishes that are worth a lot of points. If all of a sudden you find that you're probably lagging behind, do you give up the points of the picky card and go for another dish? It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the types of things you have to worry about. And then the face down card, which interestingly enough, the one that I used for the example was one that had to be chosen as face down. You have ones like that. There's another one that has to be visible. You have that in secret, but it might not be worth as many points. It won't be doubled like the other card, but it might be a lot easier for you. Or maybe you want to keep a card like Picky hidden so no one can try to interfere with you, and things like that. Or cards that specifically need you to go for different food groups so people don't swipe them from you if it doesn't hurt them to do so. So it's a very easy game to teach and simple game to teach and fast game to teach, fast to set up. There isn't a lot of complexity in how things are set up and how they run from turn to turn. But there's definitely a level of strategy there. There's definitely how you pick your trait cards, how you choose to go after them, whether you choose to abandon going after them at a certain point. Very simply trying to get the cards, rolling the die and saying, oh, well, this matches this card, but that card, I can wait on that card. That card's not that great for me. What I really want is this card, but that didn't come up on the die, so now I have to spend my money, which is very limited in this game. Do you do that? And what card do you choose to sack in the row to keep it from another player? That type of stuff. So it is simple, but there's other things going on that are a level above. So if any of that sounds like it appeals to you, if you like the theme, very lighthearted, relatable theme, if you like card management, hand management, if you like games that are very fast and easy to set up and teach and can be played with younger gamers and casual gamers, but also can be played with heavier gamers who are looking for something a little more strategic, but may want something just a little more light at the beginning or end of a night, well, you don't have to take my word for any of this. You can go to the Kickstarter page and find out even more information than I could possibly tell you here. Go there, you can follow the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video, and hopefully you will consider backing the project. That is what's for dinner from A La Carte Games. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, for supporting our sponsors. Take care.